Halloween.
Hello.
Halloween. So we have two black witches, me and Nat, and two red witches,
Yes.
Paddy and Dee. How
Yes.
lovely. Dee, what have you got on your face?
I'm not sure. Blood. I'm crying. It's sort of significant. It's like crying tears of blood.
Oh, I thought you'd just lost your lipstick. I thought you put your lipstick on wrongly. That was all.
I did, and I thought I'd leave it because it's Halloween. And the little pointy hat, of course, just a little nod to witches.
Yes.
And when you think about it, witches, you know, I think we would all be sort of termed as witches 200 or 300 years ago, don't you?
Even last week, I think. Even last week.
Yes. Completely and
yes, now, thank God Caddy is back.
Yes, it's lovely to be back.
We've so missed you.
Flown to New York and back, and been to what seems like a lot of concerts. So, which is nice. I never complain because we lived through 2020. So, busy and good. And New York was fabulous. It wasn't too cold. It wasn't too hot. I loved it.
And how was
I don't like her anymore. Caddy.
Oh, I love Caddy.
Offer.
But you went to Carnegie Hall, didn't you, Caddy?
Yeah, so Isidore was playing at Carnegie Hall and we were in the hotel opposite, and it was wonderful. She was so excited and it was such a brilliant night. And then the next day we just wandered down 7th Avenue and got to Times Square, and we just had fun. After all the kind of stress and build-up of Carnegie Hall, it was a great success. And then we could just let our hair down. It was wonderful.
We've got a fabulous guest, actually. Yes. And who else to introduce him but his gorgeous wife?
Well, I'm very excited to introduce, my best friend and my husband, Clive Francis.
Hello,
Clive.
Hello.
Now, Clive, I've just got to say this very quickly. I hear you've been sleeping with one of us.
Well, I have. And I've got 4 Wonderbirds, and I've chosen one. I know, that's great.
So it's secret. Don't tell anybody who it is.
No, we won't. But I do remember you, Clive, many moons ago. If I say Edinburgh, and I say Shirley Ann Field, and I say hotel, what does that conjure up for you as a Halloween day?
It conjures up with a very, an interesting occasion. Thank you very much for bringing that back to my attention. Yes. I'd forgotten about that. Yes. I was doing travesties at the Lyceum Theatre up there. And Shirley Ann was staying in the same house or same hotel that I was staying in. And she was quite a lass. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Very much so. Yes. Very interesting lady.
Quite a lass. This is obviously a story that I've never heard.
That's another chapter of my book you haven't read. So we'll get on to that later.
Well, I do remember because she was in my husband's play at the time, and she was in bed with a cold. And my husband
I was going to say in bed with who?
my husband said to me, "Oh, could you possibly talk her through her lines and go and get her medication?" And I just arrived and I was thinking, oh, all right then, but of course, anything for the cause. And I met up with you, Clive, and you said, well, I tell you what, before we go for the medication, let's go to Arthur's Seat. So off we whizzed to Arthur's Seat. Do you remember that?
I'm afraid I don't, but I've been at Arthur's Seat so many times in my life.
Oh my God, this is what we've heard.
It must have been a memorable occasion, though. But, wonderful.
Probably. So, Clive, I know Natalie knows all of these questions, but I've got lots and lots of questions. I mean, I have been a fan of yours for many years, and you are gorgeous and lovely, and it's really weird that we've never met before, except we have, of course, now, but before that. But I want to take you back to the very beginning about how you became an actor. So you come from a show business family, don't you?
Yeah, I do indeed, yes. My father was Raymond Francis, and he was Inspector Lockhart in a very long-running series called No Hiding Place.
Oh,
and
yes.
before that, it was called Murder Bag and then Crime Sheet. And it was really the first of the most successful police series. It was way back in the 60s. And I can remember watching the first episode of Murder Bag, which was then a half-hour live television. And I don't know what age I was, about 7 or 8 or something. And I remember watching it, and I'd never seen commercial television before. And when it came to the commercial break, I thought that was it. I thought, so I got up and I thought, I'm off to bed now. And they said, no, there's more. I said, there's more? How exciting. I'd never seen a commercial break. And that was my first introduction to seeing my father on
Didn't
TV.
you have to go to somebody else's house to watch the TV because you didn't have one?
Well, yeah, we didn't have a television until I was about 14 or 15. We used to have to go and knock on people's doors and say, are you watching ITV tonight? Because we'd like to see our father if possible. All right, so I had to switch over from BBC and watch it. So yes, we used to parade around Eastbourne looking for houses that would let us in, until my father got fed up and thought it was too embarrassing for words. And so he went out and bought a TV.
So you found it just inspiring then to come from an acting family, rather
well, it was. I mean, from a very
rebel.
early age, all I ever wanted to do was to be an actor. Of course, my mother was terrific. I mean, she was a professional actress, and then sadly she gave it all up when I was born. Really, because being married to a successful actor and having children was very hard in those days. So she gave up her acting career for 40 or 50 years. And when my father died, my mother was in her 60s. She said, I think I might go back on the stage again. So naturally, very kindly helped her find an agent. And we realized that she still had an equity number after all these years. And so she was able to draw an equity for nothing. And because she was of a certain age, and she went straight back on the board, got an agent, got straight into television within a month, and never stopped working. In fact, she was working into her 94th year with a series called Derek with with Ricky Gervais. So sorry.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais. She was. But what was so brilliant about her was that she had this gap of about 42 years or something since she hadn't. So she didn't have all that sort of thing that you get when you haven't worked for a long time. She just came back into the business with all this confidence. Then there was one day she sat in the garden. She said, "Oh, I had such a long journey yesterday. I had to go to Watford and I had to go up for this audition. It was that whole science fiction thing." And we both said, "Did you go up for Star Wars?" And she said, "Well, I met this lovely director. He was very nice. It was called, did you meet George Lucas?" "Oh, yes, that was it." Anyway, she got it. She got a part in The Phantom Menace. And a few weeks later, she said, "Oh, I've got the aeroplane list." And there was sort of Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, and there was her name on the aeroplane list. And it was just this wonderful, wonderful. She took it all in her stride. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
it was brilliant. Her scene was actually cut, but if you get
it wasn't cut, no, but it was cut down. Yes,
cut down. But then it's there in its entirety in the sort of deleted scenes, which comes in the box set. And so she became. Well, she used to go around to all these huge conventions and sign autographs.
She became a sort of like
had a huge following.
An icon. Certainly within all her grandchildren, she became an icon. I mean, my father's career and my career were thrown out the window. And my mother now became the person to know. She used to have Japanese fans. She used to find out where she lived and photograph her outside her house. She thought this was terribly amusing.
Plus,
so
where
she became
lived,
famous
she
in her 80th year.
But she also lived in this house in St Margaret's. So there were 4 houses in a row. And in Help, the Beatles movie,
when they all went in there, was that her road?
So she was in Ringo's house.
She was in Ringo's house.
So we used that as a selling point. When we were selling her house, you had pictures of Ringo and number.
Well, that was one of my favourite things. Them all walking through those doors. I loved that film.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great.
Yeah. So that was my mother, and her name was Margaret Towner. That was her stage name, and it used to be very confusing when I was growing up because my father was Raymond Francis, my mother was Margaret Towner, and our real name was Thompson. So I was Clive Thompson, who had parents with different names. So it was very confusing to all my friends at school.
Oh, Clive, I had exactly the same because my father was Eddie Arnold, but his real name was Arnold Wendorf, but he was always known as Eddie Arnold. So when I went to school, my mother was Mary Wendorf, but known as Mary Arnold, and my real name is Jeanette Deborah, so I was known as but I was born Jeanette Wendell, but then called Debbie Arnold. And then when I got married to John Challis, because then my mother remarried again, and she married a man called Morris King, whose real name was Morris Coffer. And when I got married to, and he legally adopted me after my father died. So when I got married to John Challis, the registry office, they said, "Do you John Spurley Challis?" I'll never forget that. And I went, "What?" And Jeanette Deborah Coffer. And he went, "Who's that?" That was Debbie. So I had all these names, and my children still don't know. So my children are Jansons, but they're really Jackson, because that's who David was, because David is David Jackson, but David. So we got thousands of names. Thousands.
I know. It was very confusing, and still is confusing, because on my passport I'm Thompson, and my children's name is Francis Thompson, and so we didn't
know which one to choose. We hyphenated it so we sound posher, don't we?
Yeah.
Francis Thompson, ridiculous, but and nobody wants to be all of them. But we've had so many situations where we've gone on holiday and we've got the tickets in one name, and then the passports say something else, so we have to rush somewhere else in the airport just to pay extra to kind of get the name check. Oh, it's just been a really difficult. Causes confusion.
Yeah, because nowadays people don't change their names. They always used to in our industry, didn't they? Yeah.
I don't know why my father. Well, in the early days, of course, you didn't have. You would normally use you wouldn't have a Christian name as such. I mean, my father was R.G. Thompson, so you'd have initials as a Christian name. And I got a lot of old programs of his when he was R.G. Thompson. Then he got an agent who said, "No, you can't have that. It looks awful." So they then went to Reginald Thompson. He said, "That's far too long." So they played around. They eventually came up with Raymond Francis, and that was the name that stuck, which is a good name. And I, of course, took Francis as my stage name because to try and stop the confusion there.
There was a T.P. McKenna. T.P. wasn't there? An actor called T.P. McKenna.
Well, he stayed like that, didn't he? He stayed
He did.
Yeah, he did. That's right, he did.
But I remember when I left drama school, going along to see an agent with Janine Javitsky, and the agent said, "Oh, darling, you can't possibly use that name." And she said, "And also you need a nose job," she said to her. And Janine went, "No way am I going to change my name outside." She said, "No way am I going to change my name or having a nose job." And now, of course, she's very famous, Javitsky, but she changed the spelling, that was all.
How interesting.
I changed the name and had a nose job. So there you go. It just shows you, doesn't it, really?
Well, Benedict Cumberbatch didn't change his name because his father's name is Carlton, but he didn't take his father's name. He stayed with Cumberbatch, which I thought was a ridiculous name to begin with.
Where does that Cumberbatch come from?
I presume that, I don't know, but all I know his father's name is Timothy Carlton. Yeah. And his mother's name is
Wanda Bentham.
Wanda Bentham. Yeah. And he's Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, again, there's another confusion.
But it's memorable. It makes it memorable, I suppose, isn't it?
Anyway,
Clive, it does, very memorable.
Yes. We must ask you. You've had the most fantastic career, but we must ask you about this play that you're doing now.
Yes.
I'm doing the advertising. Here we go.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh, it's all ready.
I'm sorry.
This is the program. I'm sorry, Prime Minister. I can't quite remember. He's brilliant. They're all brilliant. It's a really, really fabulous evening, and I'll shut up. You tell us.
I was going to do it with Simon Callow back in 2020, but then, of course, the pandemic came, and we had the whole thing was abandoned. And then, of course, in the course of the 3 years, having read the script, so much had happened in the world. I said to Jonathan, "You've got to rethink the script." Because, we've had, apart from the pandemic, we've had Black Lives Matter, we've had all various things of the transgender situation. So much has happened that we can't just go back to the old idea. So he did very cleverly inserted so much into it that we have so many arguments about it. And I play Appleby, Sir Humphrey Appleby. And a lovely actor is playing called Chris Bianchi, who's playing Hapker, because he took over from Jonathan Lynn, who was playing it, who was the author of the piece. But dear Jonathan is of an age now and not at all well. So he did the first 3 weeks with us in Cirencester and has gone back to America. So Chris has stepped in and he's fantastic. He's playing hacker, and we're now well into our 80s. You see, I'm in an old folks home. I go and visit him, and we eventually sort of come together and sort of we're going to go and have a flat somewhere. You know, whether it'd be like the odd couple, really, sort of reunited.
But just for the viewers, it is anybody who loved Yes Prime Minister. This is what it is. It's what's happened to the old boys.
We get all that, and we say all the wrong things that are, you can't say that's very inappropriate. Really, why? And so we have all that, everything that we do in our own daily lives anyway. So, but it's a delightful play, and I'm so pleased it's gone down so well here in Cirencester. It really has. The audience just adore it. The next week or the week after next, we go on to Bath, the Theatre Royal Bath, and then we're going to the lovely little Arts Theatre in Cambridge.
Lovely.
And then we stop for the time being, and we'll see whether it's got legs for the following year, and we go into town with it or something. But they're very hopeful that it might. But it's been an extraordinary time because the pandemic was around. Nobody was working. I used the time during the pandemic to create an art exhibition, so all that time wasn't wasted. But of course, it took a long time to get one's face back on the screen or one's legs back on the stage. And all of a sudden now it's a bit like waiting for a bus, but 6 have turned up at the same time. So I go straight from this to my Christmas carol, which I'm doing at the Tabard. I'm plugging everything here, aren't I?
Yeah, that's
which
good.
is,
Which
is going to be at the Tabard Theatre in Chiswick right after Christmas. And then I go into the Circle, which is a play, the Somerset Maugham play I did at the Orange Tree, which again was a huge success. And so we're taking that on tour. As from January next year, going some delightful places, including Bath and Cambridge again. And then I finished that by having my own play or my own adaptation of Three Men in a Boat being put on at Sonning, at the mill at Sonning. So then total silence after that. That's when my career comes to an end.
Do you know what? That means I pretty much got rid of him for about 6 months. He's never home. Isn't that great? That's why we have such a long-lasting marriage. 36 years. 36 years we've been together.
Wow.
It's a really good thing to have a bloody good row every now and then, isn't it? Clear the air and then we just carry on.
Sometimes I had to meet your wife first just to meet you. That was my penance.
Oh, how nice. How nice.
I'm happy to share him. He's very good value, so you can all share him.
I wondered what you were going to say then, Natalie.
But Clive and I went to see Caddy's brilliant daughter at the Albert Hall. That was the most wonderful experience.
That was a wonderful night. Wonderful night.
That's where I met Clive for the first time. It was lovely of you to come. It was so I managed to have a nice conversation with you afterwards.
It was a treat for me because I admire your family so much, and I said to her, or I heard somebody on Radio 3 call her Isitor the other day. I was so cross, then he rang them up. Yes. And I rewatched again recently that wonderful documentary that you did on it. Was it on Imagine? Was it
Imagine?
The whole family together. Oh, it was fabulous. So moving. Yeah.
Oh, that's why it's so lovely talking to actors like you, because you all experienced that 2020 where everything went. And that's where that documentary came from, that kind of where, all the slates were wiped clean. It was an incredible time.
Yes,
it's amazing hearing about your 6 months of just constant work. That's incredible.
Well, it's nice. It is nice because you always think at a certain age of your little grey cells are not going to sort of come to your rescue anymore. But thank goodness they're still in full working order.
Well, I think you'll be like your mother, won't you?
Like your mother,
Well, there you are. I know. My mother was, and she was terrific. Yeah.
I've known you the longest.
Well, I shall always think of Arthur's Seat now when I look at you and think, oh yes.
Exactly. Me too.
Exactly. So, darling, I mean, there's so much coming up, isn't there? You actually almost
it is
booked
lovely.
for a whole
It is
year.
lovely, and they're projects that I really adore. I mean, the Christmas Carol I've been doing as a one-man show now for 24 years.
Wow.
And it's been a rather nice sort of pension for me. I started it because I was doing Christmas Carol for the RSC back in 1996, 6 and 7. It was such an
It was earlier.
incredible show.
It was 94 and 95, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And that brilliant, gorgeous Jonathan Bailey, who stars in Bridgerton, he was the little tiny Tim, wasn't he?
Oh. He was. And I worked with him recently in Bridgerton, and I couldn't believe the size of this guy now. And of course, he's so successful. And I found, thank goodness, I found some photographs and a clip of him and myself in the original production on YouTube. And he was just so excited to see it again. It was very odd. He hadn't seen any yet. He was a little tiny boy. And now he's this great hunk of a man, who's having runaway successes. So that was fun. Yeah, so then I turned it into a one-man show, and I brought it out every Christmas, and ever since. And it's been a lovely thing to do. It's a great way of starting Christmas.
I don't know how many times I've seen it over the years, and literally every single time I watch it, every time I get to the end, I cry. It's so it's one of those stories, and it gets you every time. And I think just before Christmas, it really always leaves you leaving the theatre thinking, I can do something to change somebody else's life. I can make a difference. I have to, because we all carry on in our own lives, but it's the most powerful story.
Yes, it is. And as we're living
I hope I can make a difference in Dee's life to get her out of that bloody hat.
Oh, it's Halloween, everybody. It's Halloween.
Yes, I forgot I was wearing it, actually. I'm glad you told me, because I would have gone out with this on.
We are going to give you a very, very big plug just before everything starts again, especially at the Tabard. I'm sure you're going to come. And obviously, you can come and see us whenever you like, because you do have a vested interest in this show, being wed to a Wonderbird. You are lucky, and we love you very much, and you're still as gorgeous as ever.
Lovely to see you again.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. Oh, he's lovely.
What a charming husband you have, Natalie.
I have a charming husband. He's kind of sickening, because he sort of can do everything. He's a great gardener. He's a great writer. He's adapted plays. He's a wonderful theatrical caricaturist. And he's a bloody good actor. It's kind of sickening.
And he's a good husband?
He's a good husband too. And I think,
my goodness.
Yes, he is a good. He is a good husband.
And a good father.
Bloody good dad. Bloody good dad. The sort of, come on. All marriages have their ups and downs, but what we've always had is a sense of humour.
Yeah.
And
who's married to you.
I know, you have to have a sense of humour married to me. But, as you go on with a very long relationship, all the things that drive you absolutely nuts about the person at the beginning, you realise later on they're the things that you're going to miss if suddenly they weren't there. Like the fact that I don't put the tops on jars and stuff like that, Clive, you're going to miss me. You'll miss that.
Is it 36 years? Is it 36?
Yeah.
Wow. That's brilliant. That's amazing.
Especially in our industry. It's
very it's Halloween. It's Halloween.
Yes. So we're going to have our ball on, Dee's ball, that's become my ball, of course, on Thursday night. So we're just getting ready for that. So all have a good trick or treat tonight. Yeah. And we will see you on when? On Friday.
On Friday.
Friday.
Whatever day it is, Friday. But have a good trick or treat tonight, everyone, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.
Bye.